Hi, welcome back to Manohar Academy. In this lesson, we are going to learn about the superclass and subclass constructors. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to understand this particular statement. In every constructor, on the first line, you call either a different constructor in the same class using the this keyword or one of the superclass constructors. And the compiler is going to ensure the conformity to the above statement. Okay, before we get started, let's see what are the requirements for this class. You should have some understanding about inheritance. That means you should be able to create some derived classes from the superclass. Also, you should know what is constructor and how to call other constructors in the same class. Okay, let's get started. We know one thing, that is, if a class doesn't have any constructor, then compiler provides the default constructor, and it provides the default constructor only in this particular case. It doesn't do that in any other case. Like if the constructor have any constructor, if the class has any other constructor, then the compiler won't touch it. The compiler won't provide the default constructor. Okay, let's go to IDE. We are going to use the same three classes that we have been using for this particular module on inheritance. Okay, we have a person class. Person has first name. So we have getters and setters. Also, we know how to print that. We want to print a proper message. So we included the toString method. Also, we have student class which extends from the person class. The student has first name, that is inherited, and admission number. Employee is also extending the person, and he has the first name and employee number. So in the test class, in the main method, we are creating a person, we are setting the name. We are also creating student, setting his first name and admission number. We are creating an employee, setting first name and employee number. Then we are printing all three objects using a simple for loop. Okay. Also, I included some lines in between so that we will understand what is happening. Okay, I am running this particular code. You can see nothing happened when the objects are created, but after that we printed all the three objects. Now, what did we discuss? In the class, because these three classes doesn't have any constructors, the compiler is going to provide the default constructors. So let's see how they look. Okay, obviously it will be public employee. So this is the constructor the compiler is going to provide. So we included it ourselves to see what happens. So here we will include the student constructor, and in person there will be a constructor. Okay, we included those three constructors, and I am going to run this once more, just to show you nothing changed. Okay, nothing changed. We got the three objects printed. Now, in every constructor, let me add one message saying in person constructor, in student constructor, in employee constructor. Okay, now if I run, when I am calling the person constructor, I should get a message in person constructor. When I am calling student constructor, I should get a message saying in student constructor. When we are calling employee, we are in employee constructor. Let's see if we are going to get that output or some other output. So you can see after each object creation, we are printing a line. So if we see now, okay, once we call the person constructor, we got the message in person constructor. We are good there. But when we call the student constructor, this is the first line in the student constructor, which is printing in student constructor. But even before that particular line is executed, the superclass constructor is called and it is executed. Same is true about employee. Even before the first line in employee constructor is executed, the superclass constructor is executed. So what is happening here? The compiler is looking at these constructors. So it looks at employee constructor and says, okay, this class has a superclass, meaning it is extending from other class. So it should call superclass constructor on the first line. So it is going to insert that particular statement. This is how we call the superclass constructor. And also the compiler is always going to call the default constructor only. So this is going to call this particular default constructor. When we say default constructor, we mean a constructor without any input arguments. Okay, same is true even in student class. So it is going to insert this particular call to superclass default constructor. Let me execute this one again to show you there is no change. Whether we explicitly add that line or the compiler inserts that particular line doesn't matter. That is going to be there. Okay, so now we have this particular conclusion. Like in every constructor, the compiler inserts a call to superclass default constructor. This is not exactly true. That we are going to see after few more points. But this statement is partially true. We will see when it is true, when it is not true. Okay, let's get continue. In person class, now the person says, okay, once the object is created, we don't want to change the name. So that means we should not have this public method which can be used to change the name of the person after the object is created. So we are going to comment this out. So as a result, we can't make these calls. Okay, good. We decided that the name shouldn't be modified after the object is created, so we commented this out. Now let's run the code and see what happens. So if we see here, basically the name cannot be set because in person class there is no setter and we can't access the private fields outside this class. So how do we set the person name? So we have to include a constructor that will accept the first name. Okay, so this is the way we can set the first name when we are creating the object, and after that we can't modify it. Okay, now the person class says, okay, I have a constructor using which you can set the name, but as long as I have this particular default constructor, you will be always able to create a person without first name, and after that you won't be able to set his name. So that is true. Okay, first of all, in the person class, let's provide that name and see we are good. Okay, we provided the name in the constructor, and in the constructor we set that name, we are good. Okay, as we were discussing, we want to make sure that every time only this particular constructor is called, not this particular one. So now I am going to comment this one. You understood the reason, right? Why we are commenting this one? We want to make sure when the object is created, we are setting the first name. So if we have this default one, that is not properly ensured. So we are going to comment this one. And when we don't have this one, we are going to run into problems. Just wait a second and we will see what the problem is. Okay. The moment the default constructor in the superclass is commented out or removed, let me remove it, okay, or let it be there. The moment it is commented out or removed, the subclasses started failing. What is happening here? So in the subclass, as we said, okay, on the first line we are calling the superclass constructor and the superclass default constructor is not there. Okay, let's comment this out. What happens? Okay, right? Okay, now we commented this one. Okay, now the constructor is failing. So as I said, on the first line, if there is no call, if on the first line, if there is no call to superclass constructor, then the compiler is going to insert it. whether I write it or not, the compiler is going to insert this particular one. So now what can I do? And why is it being mandatory, or why we should do that? Because if we don't call this particular constructor, we will never be able to set the first name. So the compiler is ensuring that we call the right constructor. Okay, now I want to pass the first name to the superclass. For that to happen, I need to get the first name also. So I go to student class and I will provide a first name here. Now the student should be happy. Okay, maybe I gave the wrong name. Okay, the student is happy and there is no compilation errors. Let me do the same thing in the employee also. In the employee also, let me get that first name and pass it to superclass, so that we will always set the name for the person. I don't know why IDE is showing that error. Okay, we are good now. We have 3 classes, and in each class we have a constructor that takes one argument. In the person class, it is directly been set. In student class, we are calling the superclass constructor to set that one. Let me remove these ones. We don't need them anymore. Okay, now if the superclass does not have a default constructor, that is what we are seeing here. The superclass does not have default constructor. In that case, the subclass should provide a defined constructor. So here we have to provide this constructor, right? If I don't do that, what happens is, okay, this class doesn't have a constructor. Compiler is going to insert that default constructor and also a call to superclass constructor, and it fails. So because of that reason, whenever superclass doesn't have default constructor, the subclass should provide a constructor. At the same time, it should call the superclass constructor explicitly, as we did here. If we don't call explicitly, what happens is, again, the compiler is going to call the superclass default constructor, and we are going to get a compilation error. Okay, that is the reason we should provide a constructor in the subclass. At the same time, we should call the superclass constructor explicitly on the first line. Okay, now let me create one more constructor. This time I'm going to use the IDE feature that will accept admission number. Okay, now you may be thinking that I am going to get a constructor, the student constructor, that is going to take admission number as input. Okay, here is the surprise. Not only that, we are also getting one more argument, first name, because in each constructor we think, okay, the constructor has a responsibility to make sure the superclass constructor is called. Because of that reason, the only way you can call superclass constructor is by providing one argument which will be set to set the first name. Okay, so that is the reason when we generated this constructor, we got a 2 argument constructor, and on the first line it is calling the superclass constructor. Okay, now here I am going to use that one instead. So this particular call is going to invoke this particular constructor, not this one. Okay, let me do the same thing for employee. This is very important. Okay, in the employee, I'm going to create the constructor. Same thing happened, but here instead of calling the superclass constructor, I can call the other constructor in the same class. So as a result, once we invoke this particular one, we are going to invoke the other constructor. In the other constructor, it is calling the superclass constructor and setting the first name. Then here we are setting the employee number. Okay, that is also fine, and let me send those things. Okay, now if I execute, I don't know why I'm getting that error, but yeah, we are good here, right? Yep, we are good. Okay, so here we can see that in every constructor, the first line should be a call to superclass constructor, or it should be a call to a different constructor in the same class. Okay, now let me show that as a notes. In every constructor, on the first line, we should call either different constructor in the same class, as you can see here, or one of the superclass constructors, as you can see here. Okay, now if I don't have this one or this one, I should have one of those. If I don't have, what is going to happen is, again, the constructor will include this particular call, and the constructor will include that particular call only when the first line doesn't have a call to superclass constructor or the constructor in the same class. So that is the next point. So the above requirement, or if above requirement is not satisfied, then the compiler inserts a call to superclass default constructor. That is what we mean by this statement. The statement number 2 is true only sometimes. That is true only when this particular statement is not true. Okay, that is all about the superclass and subclass constructors. And also one more thing. Let me say, can we call the superclass constructor and a different constructor in the same class at the same time? We can't do that. Here it says the superclass constructor call should be on the first line, not on the second line. It should always be the first statement in a constructor. Now this is going to complain saying, okay, it can't be second line, it should be on the first line. So as a result, these calls can happen only on the first line. Because of that, only one of them can happen. Okay, either you call a superclass constructor or a different constructor in the same class. Okay, I don't know why. Okay, the error went away. So what? Okay, I don't know why ID is complaining, but if I run this particular one, you are going to see that it runs just fine. Okay, it did not run. Okay, employee super first name. I don't know. Here it is working and here it is not working. I don't understand. Okay. Okay, this is the notes. Let me go through it once again. In a class, if a class doesn't have any constructor, then the compiler provides a default constructor. If superclass doesn't, second point, let's not read it here. Let's read it at the end. Okay. If a superclass doesn't have default constructor, then in the subclass, we should provide the constructor and also call the proper superclass constructor explicitly. Also, in every constructor on the first line, we should call either a different constructor in the same class or one of the superclass constructors. If the above requirement is not satisfied, then the compiler inserts a call to superclass default constructor. That's what I mean when I was mentioning this particular statement. In every constructor on the first line, you call either a different constructor in the same class using this keyword or one of the superclass constructor using super keyword. Compiler is going to ensure the conformity. If the above statement is not satisfied, then it is going to insert that superclass constructor. So it is going to ensure the conformity. Okay, that is all about superclass and subclass constructors. Last but not least, if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe. If you are benefited from this video, please like this video, also share it with your friends so that they can also watch, they can also learn. That is all from me in this lesson. See you in the next lesson. Thank you.